What if Africa's youngest nation is about to collapse again? And what if the warning is not coming from Africa, but from the United States?
We're closely monitoring and deeply disturbed by the ongoing violence in South Sudan and in the Congo.
This is not just about Salva Kiir. This is about Africa's future. The United States has issued a serious warning, accusing President Salva Kiir of pushing South Sudan toward another civil war. Speaking at the United Nations, Ambassador Jennifer Lohsetta said the problem is not a lack of peace agreements, but a lack of political will to implement them. Let that sink in. Not a lack of solution, but a lack of leadership.
Before turning to the situation on the ground, the American people would like to honor Nicholas Haysom, whose passing is a true loss to the United Nations. He spent a lifetime pushing this institution to live up to its purpose, keeping the peace and delivering for those who need it most. Mr. Haysom's warning for this council should ring in our ears even now. He was very clear. The tragedy of South Sudan is not a lack of agreements, it is a lack of political will to implement them. The gap between what we say, decide, or think on this council and what actually happens on the ground cannot be understated. The people of South Sudan will sleep no better, or no worse, based on the statements we make today. It is up to their government to change course, right the ship, and chart a better future. The American people remain deeply concerned about the security situation in South Sudan. We urge the Council to remember what happened in 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒏𝒆 this March. On March 6, President Kiir's government gave 270,000 people, mothers, children, grandparents, just 72 hours to leave the place where they lay their heads. Whatever they may say, their role was not to protect innocents, but to scorch their homes, their land, their basic necessities. Humanitarian workers describe uniformed troops burning entire settlements to the ground. Families fled with nothing. Their water sources were contaminated. Women and girls were subjected to violence as a weapon of war. Let's be clear. No such actions were merely a security operation. They were abhorrent and inexcusable. We unequivocally condemn President Kiir's course of action and the transitional government's March 6 evacuation orders for UNMISS, humanitarian agencies, and civilians. President Kiir's actions are leading South Sudan towards renewed civil war by prioritizing unilateral control over peace, protection of civilians, and national stability. This is the behavior of a government seeking to consolidate power at any cost, not one seeking reconciliation, stability, or the protection of its own people. This is a behavior of a government failing to uphold the basic duties of government, which are to maintain its stability and protect its people. South Sudanese leaders are systematically obstructing UNMISS's mandate and undermining international peace efforts. This is not an isolated phenomenon. It is part of a broader, deeper, troubling pattern of obstruction and exploitation of international assistance. South Sudanese leaders can choose to cooperate with UNMISS, serve their people, work with each of our countries in good faith, and work to put an end to this carnage. They just don't. Instead, they make UNMISS's work nearly impossible and suspend catastrophe because they know it's good for them. Such systematic obstructions cost UNMISS and each of our taxpayers millions of dollars. Blockage of UNMISS's repatriation flights and the subsequent forced closure of at least 3 UNMISS bases demonstrate blatant regard for cooperation. Between January and March alone, UNMISS recorded more than 80 SOFA incidents, and in the months prior, from October to December of last year, there were more than 400 SOFA incidents recorded. We will not support a mandate that simply preserves the status quo while civilians are targeted and peacekeepers are sidelined. As such, the United States supports narrowed mandate priorities that are realistic and achievable given the realities on the ground. Civilian protection, humanitarian assistance, human rights reporting, zero tolerance for obstruction, transparent reporting, and meaningful accountability. UNMISS leadership must also significantly improve its protection of civilian efforts. According to a June 2025 UN Office of Internal Oversight Services report, 80% of UNMISS's patrols remained within 5 kilometers of bases. 𝒂𝐻 areas like 𝒀𝒐𝒏 received even fewer patrols. Colleagues, that's not peacekeeping, that's bench warming on our dime. We strongly call on UNMISS leadership to provide transparent and accurate reporting to this Council, both where the mission is succeeding and where it is falling short, so that we can have informed decision-making. The people of South Sudan do not need another year of process. They don't even need our statements today. They need protection and leaders who will actually work for them. This Council must hold South Sudan's leaders accountable and ensure this mission is equipped and willing to beat this moment. Thank you.
To understand this crisis, we must go back to 2011. South Sudan became the world's newest country after breaking away from Sudan. There was hope, there was celebration. Africa believed a new chapter had begun, but just 2 years later, that dream collapsed. In 2013, a violent power struggle erupted between President Salva Kiir and his former deputy Riek Machar. What started as politics quickly turned into ethnic violence, mainly between the Dinka and Nuer communities. The numbers are devastating. Nearly 400,000 people killed, millions displaced, entire communities destroyed. This became one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. Fast forward to today, the United States says South Sudan is once again heading toward disaster. Recent reports accuse the government of forcing over 270,000 people from their homes within days. Villages burned, water sources destroyed, families fleeing with nothing, and peacekeepers blocked, restricted. Even the United Nations mission is struggling to operate effectively. But let's ask a deeper question. Why does an African leader turn against his own people? Why does an African soldier raise a weapon against another African? This is not just a South Sudan problem. Across the continent we see similar patterns, conflicts fueled by power struggles, resources like oil and land, and systems inherited from colonial rule that divide rather than unite.
I'm a great believer in unity. I believe in the old adage, unity is strength. This is truly, it is strength, and the human race would be much stronger if we were united. We'd get rid of a lot of problems in the world if we could be united, and therefore the human race must move towards unity. And continents like mine, a country like Tanzania must move towards greater unity, continents must move towards greater unity, and the human race must move towards unity. But
Africa was not designed to function as one. It was divided to be controlled. And today, we are still living with those divisions. But here's the truth we must face. Africa cannot develop while it is fighting itself. Every war destroys economies. Every conflict delays progress. Every division weakens the continent. While other regions build, we rebuild after destruction. Unity makes Africa strong. Conflict keeps Africa behind. Now let's ask the uncomfortable question. Where is the African Union? Why is Africa not leading the solution to African problems? Because if we don't solve our own crises, others will step in. And that is where things become dangerous. History has shown us that when Western powers get involved in African conflicts, it is rarely just about peace. It becomes about influence. It becomes about control. It becomes about resources. This is neo-colonialism. Control without direct colonization. So while the US warning may highlight real issues, Africa must remain cautious, because saving Africa should never mean losing control of Africa. South Sudan is standing at a crossroads. One path leads back to war, the other leads to stability and nation-building. But that path requires leadership, it requires accountability, it requires unity, not just in South Sudan, but across Africa. And if you want to understand why Africa continues to face these cycles of conflict, read my book, Decolonize African Institutions, now available on Amazon. Link in the description. Because here's the truth. Africa's biggest enemy is not outside the continent, it is division within it. So the real question is, will Africans continue to fight each other, or finally unite to build a stronger future? Because until we choose unity, we will keep repeating the same history. subscribe to Africarized.